I've had situations where people said, kind of congratulated me for being on parental leave, right? And I'm sure my wife did not get congratulated for that. So there has been definitely cases. I think society is evolving in that regard, and it happens less and less, but you still get some congratulations for doing that, whereas the women would not get them.
I'm Keltie McGuire, and you're listening to the Kids Are Childfree podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Kids Are Childfree podcast. Okay, today's guest is someone that I met at the wine bar a few weeks ago. As you do, I have to confess that even when I'm not working, I've always got this little sort of observational side of me, the part of me that says, would this person that I'm speaking to, or that I've met at a party, or that I've connected with at a coffee shop, or the friend of a friend, like, would they be an interesting podcast guest? And as it turned out, the answer was yes. And they were also willing. So anyways, a few weeks ago, I was at this wine bar with a girlfriend of mine. There was a nice young couple there with a 14-month-old son. I didn't know he was 14 months old at the time, but I then did learn this. He was very adorable. We started chatting with a couple. I observed how nice it was. They were out on a Thursday evening, a school night, enjoying an adult beverage with their little guy. And we started talking a little bit more about their parenting decision and how they're choosing to parent their son. And as I spoke with him, his name is Alfonso, I was specifically curious about his fatherhood decision and journey. And was this something he always desired? How has fatherhood been thus far? How is he choosing to approach this endeavor? And lucky for all of us, he said yes to joining me on the podcast. So today I'm speaking with Alfonso Costas, who is 32 years old. He's from Spain, where he was born and raised. He moved to the US to study at the age of 18 before moving back to Munich to work as a mechanical engineer at the age of 24. Alfonso is married to a German wife with a Vietnamese background. And as I mentioned, they have a 14-month-old son together. Alfonso, thanks for joining us and being one of our first fathers on the podcast. We've only had one or two to my recollection. And I have so many different things I want to ask you because this is a perspective that we don't get very often. So maybe let me ask you first of all, did you always want to be a father?
Yes, I always wanted to be a father. I had maybe a year or two during college where I doubted this decision, but for the rest of my life, I was pretty confident about wanting to be a father.
Okay, and so I'm curious to both hear a little bit about maybe the doubts, what those doubts sort of sounded like for you, like what brought about questioning. But maybe before that, let's go back to like the always wanting to be a father. What did you picture in your mind? Or if you could articulate why you wanted to be a dad, what would you say the reason for that was?
Right. I think maybe a lot of it was the default mindset of being a parent as just something you do, right, in life. Like, you grow up, go to university, work, and then at some point you have kids. So I never really doubted that. So that was part of the assumption. And then I remember when I was a little kid talking to my mom and her mentioning once that her sister and I were like the best thing that happened to her, and that like stuck with me.
Yeah.
And created that foundation for always wanting to be a father. Later in life, turning 30, having friends, starting to have kids, having a lot of members in my family getting kids, I didn't feel pressure to become a dad, but more like an invitation. So people around me were having kids, and I felt I should join that stage in life as well.
Yeah, I'm curious, and of course, an invitation versus pressure, like that's. One sounds a lot better than the other. How much of that do you think felt like an invitation because of your gender and being a man? Or how much of it was maybe just your view on it? Or maybe it didn't feel pressurous. Like, I'm curious why you viewed it that way instead of, oh, this is something I have to do.
Just spending summers together, for example, with my family, all of a sudden my sister got a kid, my cousins got a kid. So we used to be quite close together during our summer vacation. So all of a sudden, everyone having a kid and me being the last one left out felt more like a pressure I put on myself, right? This is something I should do. It's not that someone came to me and asked me. Like, my parents would ask me from time to time, is this something you want to do? but already was a yes built in inside of me. Maybe if I had say, no, I don't want to have kids, maybe that's when the pressure would have come. And maybe if I was a woman, maybe there would have been a bit more pressure. Yeah. But in my case, I felt it was a decision that I made, not that someone imposed it on me.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because you'd already decided you wanted to have a child. It makes sense. There would have felt like less pressure. Whereas if you felt uncertain, or if you didn't want a kid, I guess that would feel different. So,
right.
Okay. And when you were in college or university, you said there was a little bit of questioning. What were some of the doubts that you had?
Right. I think part of it was age, right? You're on your early 20s, partying, and you don't think of having kids, and you think that this is the life that you want to have for longer. And
yeah.
It's not only that you don't want to have kids at that point, but maybe you think, okay, this is something that I will never do. But I think out of this stage in life, it's something that I grew out a little bit. And maybe part of it was also maybe character. I'm a quite independent person. Like, I like to do things by myself or with my friends. And I did have some hesitation, okay, with the personality that I have, with the things I like to do. Is parenthood something for me? That's how some hesitations came to me. But I was able to convince myself or to decide that despite having these traits, I could still be a father and be happy with it.
Yeah. I'm interested when you talk about sort of changing your mind or convincing yourself that fatherhood could still be something you'd be happy with. Like things like, you mentioned maybe some of your hobbies or things you enjoy doing, that independence you have. How did your thinking go? Like, I'm curious how you changed your mind, if there were maybe examples you had, or like, were you questioning these beliefs? I'm just interested how you sort of flip things around for yourself.
Right. I think something important that I always consider before being a father, and also while being a father, is I have to remind myself sometimes when there's the 1 or the 2 days when the kid is sick or things are not going well and you're a bit stressed out, that it's a stage in life. I will not be a father of a 1-year-old for the rest of my life, right? It's a few years. And from what I heard of people with older kids, 15, 18, there's a time that they're more independent, right? More on their own. So all those challenges that you've had with maybe less freedom, less time for yourself is gone. So I think that was part of the reasoning to think, okay, these are some years where I have to change my habits and be a little bit different, but I'm not signing up a contract for the rest of my life. And also just having a kid, I felt the idea of not having a kid would be more missing out than the opposite, right? That I would miss out more if I don't have a kid than if I do have a kid, and then I miss out my freedom, right? So I think that's also a big part of my decision, that wanted to have that and maybe wanted to have more in life than what I've had until then, right? I just grew up with, I think some of it is in the media or movies, that when you become a parent, you find this meaning, right? And but I did want to have that, to have love for a child, to bring someone up. I did feel that's experience I didn't want to miss out on.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense, because we know we'll miss something either way, but sort of thinking about like, which of these things would I hate to miss out on more, knowing that, I'm not going to get to experience everything. And I also think framing those difficulties like you've done as stages, it's not going to last forever. I mean, I have to laugh only because you're saying, well, it's not yes, there's no contract to have a child. The child in that relationship hopefully will be lifelong. And yet when you talk about it not being a contract, you're meaning like you're not going to be the parent to a 1-year-old forever. That's not like
exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. That usually the challenges that people think is, okay, the nights are tough, or taking the kid to school. And I think those are different stages, right? Yeah. And then once the child is older, I think it becomes more of a equalitarian relationship, right? You and your child, where it's all of that burden that maybe you had to put up at the beginning, you don't have. Of course, it's a contract for life, that you have the child for the rest of your life. Is just not the same type of burden.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think recognizing like the variability in that relationship as opposed to being like, this is my life now and it will be like this forever.
Right.
Of course, there's a huge amount of variability within that. So,
Right.
okay. So I'm curious, you are married. You have a lovely lady who I've had the good fortune of meeting. When in that relationship did you talk about having children? And then how did you ultimately decide like the timing is right for us to do this now?
It was pretty easy, the decision, to be honest, because we both wanted to have children. And I would say even more her, right? I've always been passionate, but she must have children at all cost, right? So it was pretty easy for us to make that decision. It was more us get to know each other and see if we match and we could be good parents together, right? Than the idea of being a parent, right? It was not, do I want to be a parent, but do I want to be a parent with this person? So then it became a question of when to do it. We had the fortune of being relatively young when we met and having time to decide and not be in a rush to say, okay, the biological clock is ticking, we need to have a baby now, but we could plan a little bit ahead. So things that we wanted to do, travel, spend time together, all these things, we had time to do that. And once we had enough things that we wanted to do together checked off, we said, okay, now is the time when we can try to have a child, and that's how it happened.
Okay. Were you excited or were you scared or both?
Yes,
when you made that choice?
I was pretty confident. I would not say that I was scared. I said once she was pregnant a few months before, then it's coming, and you do get a little bit more scared. But in general, I would not say I was too scared about it. I was mostly excited. I was, before the child was born, I was so excited that he would be born and spend time with him. So I would say that was more of the feeling that I had.
Yeah. I'm interested, making this decision, the lead up to having a child, were there any particular conversations that you and your wife had that you feel like were important or helpful? I'm thinking things like, what that balance of workload might be. I know we'll talk in a bit, but like you took some paternity leave, the values with which you're going to raise your child, where you're going to raise your child. We haven't talked too much about your relationship, but of course, you're an international couple. So I'm just interested, are there any conversations that felt important for the two of you to have?
Yes, of course. I think about the expectations of having a child is very important to talk about it. Like, how do you want to raise your child? What values do you want to instill in him or her? That's something that we definitely talked about. We didn't go in detail of I want him to go to this school and learn this language, but in general, I think we had a common understanding of how we wanted to raise the child. I think it would have been very difficult if we would have had completely different values and goals, right? We did have some discussion about expectations of tasks, how to distribute, right? Hopefully you can have a little bit of a tryout before having a child. Also with household, for example, those are some things where you can more or less clarify, okay, are we in a pretty equal relationship where both contribute to the household, and hopefully that will translate into parenthood. As well, we discussed about parental leave, how we would do it. Definitely, we did have a plan before doing that. I would say in our case, maybe the biggest challenge is location. So I am from Spain. My wife is from Germany. We live in Germany, and we did have the discussion about at some point moving to Spain because that's something that I wanted to do. And that's something that for me was very important because otherwise it would be difficult for me to never move back to Spain. And that is maybe the most sensitive discussion that we had to have before having a child, and that we had to resolve ahead of time.
Yeah. You only insofar as you feel comfortable discussing it, but like, was there a conflict there, and or what did a resolution look like for you? Because I appreciate what you said as far as, well, we talked about shared values and sort of expectations, but I agree it's hard to be like super granular, like it's going to be exactly this way. We're going to do it just like this. So what gave you enough assurance? And as a second question, like, is that then something you've decided that you will hopefully move to Spain at some point?
Yes, that is something we've decided that we had discussed before having a child. We did not agree on a date to say this day we're going to move out, but we did have that common understanding. It's something that is very important for me, that my life would very much change based on that decision. And she's generous enough to say, okay, that's something that we can do. I think when it's something so important for the other person, and also it's something that she would be fine with, right? We've decided it's not that I'm asking her to do something that she completely doesn't want to do, right? It's something that she would be also willing to do. And I think that's how we did resolve that. But I would say to someone wanting to be a parent, having such fundamental conversations of where to live, it's very important to have before having a child, because you might have the child and then it might be too late to have those discussions. Maybe you may be, so to say, stuck, right? Because you don't want to move. Okay, you're not by yourself anymore. You have someone else that depends on you. So I think it is very, very good to have those conversations ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, was there something that your wife thought, oh, I would like to do this or experience this or have our relationship dynamic look like that when we have a child, that you had to sort of consider and say, okay, yeah, I'd be willing to do that?
Yes, I think there are cultural differences between Spain and Germany, even though the countries
Tell us more.
relatively close to each other. But for example, the age where you first send your kid to kindergarten is different. Usually in Spain, with 6 months, you send them out. That also has to do with the parental leave being different in both countries. But here in Germany is 1 year or longer. I know parents that start sending their children with 2 years, right? So that was a big change for me. So first, when we were going to have a child, I said, okay, with 6 months, that's how I know it in my family. That's how we should do it. And that's something where she said, okay, that's too early here. It's not something that is done. And that's something where I had to adapt myself and say, okay, we live in Germany. We have to follow, right? We don't want, if here the kids go later, we don't want to send our child too early. And then all of a sudden he is by far the smallest child. So definitely, given that she's playing, so to say, in home turf, right? Being in Germany, I do have to make some adaptations and adapt to her expectations, and also to the cultural and systematic difference that exists between the two countries.
Yeah. I know here, I mean, this is obviously premature right now for the two of you with your son, but like there's, at least, I don't know what it's like in Spain, but there's quite some differences in the school system here and the way kids are sort of channeled into different types of scholastic endeavors at quite a young age, which I've heard, I think there's probably benefits and disadvantages, but I imagine there must be some different things between your cultures that are going to require or are requiring conversation.
Yes. It is a challenge. And I notice having family in Spain and going every 3 months there and having the children being compared to one another, which is something I don't like.
Okay. Tell me about that. What sort of comparison?
I notice now it's totally fine because the kids are so small, right? So it's, what are you going to compare? But for example, I know reading age, here they start a little bit later than in Spain, and I can already imagine what the conversations will be. Oh, your child is not reading yet. What the hell is going on? So things like that. I think here they go into the school, what's called the school here after kindergarten, later than in Spain. So I think maybe over there it becomes more demanding at a younger age, whereas here it is more about playing, letting the kids play for a little bit longer. So I know those cultural challenges will it's something that we'll have to address, but it is something that I feel comfortable with having my child here for a little longer, a few years longer, because at the end, I live in Germany and I know what the outcome of the educational system is, and it's as good or better than in Spain. So I don't think I have to make excuses for it. Just accept, okay, we live in a different system. There's prior research backing up both options, and I don't have a very strong opinion on whether one or the other one is the best. So
yeah, I think, I mean, frankly, what you're describing, I think, is in general, as a, expat, immigrant, whatever language we want to use there, but like someone who's from elsewhere, those are things we have to contend with without a child that can be challenging. Okay, this is a different way of doing things, and sometimes we don't like it and we can complain, but I've always had to adapt the perspective of like, if I choose to be here, which I am, then I have to find some sort of acceptance or at least openness, right? And understanding. Right. I imagine that gets harder when you have a child, but I'm hearing from you, like, assuming things seem relatively reasonable, and to your point, like, okay, it's not like either country is a bad option when it comes to educating a child.
Right.
Sort of having to navigate and contend with that is part of it.
Right. But I do, having lived here, being a single person without a child and being with a child, I think those cultural differences become accentuated once you have a child, and once you have to experience all the difference. Because once it's about working, there's not too much difference between one country or the other. But at the early stages, that's where different countries have a different strategy, and both might be good. There's a book about, I think it's called The Danish Way of Parenting, something like that. I think Denmark has a more similar system than Germany, where kids play and put more focus on playing for a bit longer. And this book talks about that being beneficial. So I do not think that one system, or I don't have so far a strong opinion on whether one system is better than the other. I just have to say, when I go to my country, when I meet with my friends or with my family, if someone sometimes asks surprise, oh, why are things that way? Why are things that other way? Okay, this is the way it's done there, and it's something we have to accept. It's something I've accepted moving here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a few more questions around sort of maybe some of the cultural differences or even those visits back to Spain, but let's talk about the arrival of your son. So you mentioned he's one. How many months old is he now?
He's 14 and a half months.
14 and a half months. All right. In those early days when every week makes a difference, I'm sure, with growth and development and change. Tell me about his arrival and what that meant for you.
It was great. I mean, regarding the kid being born and health, everything was fine. We didn't have any particular challenge. I would say my experience is that continues to get better. I would say at the beginning everything was a bit more challenging, and now it becomes more and more fun. And I think that there's two things about it. The first is, in my case, when the child grows and reacts more, interacts more, it becomes more fun. When I thought of being a dad, I never thought of, okay, I want to hold a baby in my hands, but okay, I want to have a toddler or a 10-year-old teenager, right? Have conversations, teach him to play tennis or football, those kind of things, right? So having a small baby, I was excited about, but I think the good things are coming. And it does regarding logistics, right? Those challenges of having a baby, waking up in the night, those things, I do think it becomes easier, at least until now. And also the second part of it, why it becomes easier, is because it's such a big change, right? Even though you plan on it and you want to be a dad, it is still such a big change to all of a sudden being a dad, right? I think all of a sudden your identity is different than before. Your life plans change. Your responsibility is very different. So that's something that you have to adapt to. And I think that's where maybe being a dad, it might be more challenging as a mother. I think as a mother, maybe sadly you're more primed to being a mom. As a dad, maybe you might be more surprised. You had less mentoring, less expectation setting into you. And once it comes, it is it is a big challenge. So having that now, almost 15 months of being a dad has helped me to adapt myself into it, see what things work best, how to do it, right? It's something you learn. So I would say it was never a huge challenge, but it becomes better with time so far. Yeah.
I thought we would just chat for a moment about the benefit of having a plan when it comes to making this kids or child-free decision. Because if you're anything like me, when I was trying to navigate this choice, there's a lot of spinning in circles. There are moments where you're thinking the same thought on and on and on over and over again, where you're spinning out, thinking about worst case scenarios, and yet there's a chance you're not actually making that much progress by doing these things. Let me know if that's familiar. Let me know, are you feeling more stuck today than you were when you first started exploring this decision? If you can relate to what I'm sharing, then having a plan to approach this decision can make all the difference in the world, especially when it's a plan that is proven to help people get clarity on this path. What am I proposing? Well, I am proposing that if you are a woman who is on the fence about kids, that you check out our Kids or Child-Free group coaching program that starts on April 28th, because this is going to give you a dedicated time and space to explore this decision in a step-by-step way with me as your guide, alongside others who are also stuck making this decision. What I hear from my clients who've gone through this program is it is so nice to finally not have this decision seeping over into every waking moment of your life, but to know I have a plan. I'm going to be showing up to the call this week. We're going to be talking about fears or decision-making or the beliefs that I hold about being a mom or being child-free. And that through this process, again, a process that has been designed to help you get clarity on this decision, you will gently, step by step, find yourself moving closer one way or another so that you can finally make the choice that's right for you. If that sounds compelling, if you're tired of spinning in circles, of ruminating, of thinking the same things over and over again, and also feeling really lost on your path in this journey, then I want to invite you to join us again for the upcoming session of my Kids or Child-Free group program. This is a 3-month group program where I will serve as your guide in this process, where you'll be alongside a like-minded group of women who know what it's like to be stuck, to be on the fence, and together I'll help you, all of you, to come to a decision that feels right and best for you. I will include the details in the show notes of today's episode. You can also find them under the Work With Me tab at kidsorchildfree.com. Yeah, you make a good point. And, I'm sure maybe I could be wrong, but knowing I have a lot of women who listen to this podcast for saying, well, it's harder for dads. I'm sure there was this, how can he say that? But I think you make a good point because especially for those majority of women who carry their own child, there's a sense of even though I know sometimes women say it still feels foreign, I know other women describe it as this, there's a sense of, I have a human life growing within me. And there's a sense of connection maybe that I hear from sometimes dads, you don't necessarily have or sense that. And then of course, when there can be such a deep reliance on the mother's body in early days through things like breastfeeding, I have heard that for some men, it can feel it's hard to maybe connect in that same sort of way or to feel challenged in a different way. And to your point, there's way less, we're at least now starting to talk about things like identity shifts and changes for women, this concept of matrescence and becoming a mother. But for men, it sounds I guess, what did you think was going to happen or it would be like? And talk to me a little bit more about how it challenged you, whether it was emotionally, physically, having a child. What was that like for you that felt so difficult?
Just to clarify about the hardest, I do think being a mother and bringing a child to the world physically, it's probably it is a bigger challenge that we will face, and also the expectations put on the mom are higher. What I meant is maybe the expectations for a woman are more set, I would say sadly early on, whereas for a dad you are being less prepared for it. There's less people telling you what it will be like, less people telling you that being a dad is such an important identity, right? So the shock, even though maybe the activity itself might be easier for a man, but maybe the shock all of a sudden once you become a parent, this change maybe for the dad could be more challenging. And regarding mental challenges, I would say just being responsible for another person all of a sudden it becomes a big burden, even if you're out with friends or doing something else, that taking care of a child at that point, you are always thinking, okay, should I be here? Do I need to go back and take care of my child? How is he doing? Right. So I think those maybe it's a mental load that you have on you, and perhaps having sometimes longing for your old life might be challenging. That's something I have myself experienced. Right. You go out with the kid and you're walking around the city and you see people or friends and they are in bars, they're going out, they're making plans, and you can't do that, right? All of a sudden. I think that is in my case, that was one of the biggest psychological challenges. And then physically it is strength is required, right? You will sleep less. And then for me, in our child, we had to carry him a lot, and I had to suffer from some back issues. So there's also some mundane physical things to deal with, but nothing was too much. I could deal with most of it okay.
Yeah. I'm curious. And by the way, I appreciate the clarification. I was not accusing you of saying it's like, I understand. Like, I don't think it's a matter of, oh, this is harder, this is better, this is worse. I think it was an interesting perspective, and I appreciate your clarification because I think it gives more depth to what you're saying. I'm interested in that dynamic between you and your wife, especially in those early weeks and months of having a child. What it looked like in terms of the like shared load responsibility, caring for your son, and also how, like, were there specific things that you did to help support her? Because of course she's tending presumably to your child in her own body in a way that maybe prohibited her from doing certain things.
Yes, absolutely. So the first month, we were both off on parental leave. So the child was born okay, and she was born okay, so she was more or less okay, healthy, but still it helped to have both of us at the home for the first few weeks, because she was breastfeeding for the first year, but especially the first weeks is very important, and it's also not so easy. So she was taking care of the child. I was also taking care of the child, but then when it was about going out to buy some supplies or taking care of groceries or taking care of the house, then I was doing that for the first few weeks. And also in case she wanted to go, of course, out with her friends, I could also take care of the child. So being 1 month both off, I think it's very helpful, because you also don't know how the birth will go. It might be that it's challenging, and then she needs to stay in bed longer, and then that help becomes even more necessary.
Yeah.
And after a month, I did go back to work, and she was, maybe we discussed about parental leave as well. She was off for 7 months, and then I was out with the child for 2 months full time, and then 3 months where I was working part time.
I want to say, first of all, I mean, we're fortunate, I think, in a lot of parts of Europe and certainly Germany with the generous parental leave that's allowed. And it shouldn't be considered, I want to say it should be the norm elsewhere. I'm sure people listening in the US, where we've got a lot of listeners, or even Canada, are like, oh my God, you were able to take a month when your child was born. How incredible. Talk to me about the decision to take a fair amount of paternity leave later on, how that came to be. And then I want to hear what that experience was like for you.
Right. So we both wanted to do to take time off. We were both excited about it. And first, when we first discussed it, we thought maybe we do 50-50. So she can do, for example, 5 months, I can do 5 months, something like that. But then we noticed with the breastfeeding would make sense if she would take a bit longer. And also my wife was quite excited to do to take this time off and take care of the child. So that's how we decided, okay, I do the first month where where we both do it and we both take care of the child. And then the kid was born in January, and then starting August, second half of August, I took off 2 months where I was fully with him. And then after those 2 months, I took 3 where I was part-time with him. And the decision to put it that way is my wife actually started at that time a new job. So it was a perfect time for her to come from parental leave into her new job. And then for me to have a time with a child that I think it's very important for dad to spend time alone with the child at a young age. Because otherwise, if you get the child used to the mom and attached to the mom, it might just grow exponentially. And so you want early on to have also time on your own where the child gets used to having both and not just becoming to the mom, because then that problem would get worse and worse. And we spent, I think, about a month just us together. And then he started on his childcare facility. He started with kindergarten. And then I did in Germany, there's a process of adaptation period where the parent goes together with the child for like a month and a half, the first few weeks, so that the kid starts successful in the kindergarten and is not too much of a shock. Right, it starts with the people that work there, but also the father or the mother is around. In that case, it was me, and make sure that the transition is done well. And that was also recommended to us to do it as a father, because the child might feel a little bit less attached to the father than the mother, and therefore it might be easier for him to get used to the childcare facility. So that was great experience. I had a lot of fun doing it, and it's really a fun memory that I have, especially those months. At the end of it, when I was alone with him, I say I had a lot of fun. It was good to be alone, like really alone, where I know I have to do everything right. There's no support during those months, so that both parents are more or less equal, and they both can fully take care of the child.
Yeah. Is this, I'm curious, I don't know too many men having children in Germany right now. Is that uncommon for you to have taken a relatively, I would say, lengthy amount of paternity leave?
The system allows for both parents to take time off, but the system also allows for one parent to take most of the time off. What I've seen in my surroundings is the woman maybe taking 1 year and the father taking maybe 1 month, which is, I think, too much of a discrepancy. And even though here it's the fathers can take time off, I think, because it's not a must take. I think it incentivizes sometimes the women to take longer. And I do notice when I was alone with him, going out at times where people are working 2 p.m. I was working all around the city always, and I would see really mostly women. And I think that's something that could be improved. I know, for example, in Spain, it's the father takes 4 months and the mother takes 4 months. Right.
Really?
Both take the same. Here it's 14 months in total, but the mother can do 12 and the father can do 2. So, and that's what happens, unfortunately, in most cases. So I would prefer to go more towards a system that assigns to each person X amount of months, and then each person will take them.
Okay, tell me why you prefer that and why you think that's a good idea, which I agree, by the way. I'm just curious. Where does this view come from?
I do think it's... Otherwise, that's how you get... Right, the mother doing the mother job and the father just doing less. I think that starts there. And if one person is off 1 year, it might be difficult to go back. And then, you might be incentivized to then work less and less because you've already caught behind, right? So I think having that same level puts no one behind on their career. And also, as being selfish as a man, it's easier for me to demand 5 months to my employer if that's the expectation than to if everyone takes 1 month and then I come with the 5 months, right? I mean, they cannot oppose it. It's by law required, but still you have this, are you sure you want to do this? Why doesn't your wife take longer? So I wish that was more accepted, that more people took longer, more men took longer.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to ask, what were people's responses to that? Was your work giving you pushback or saying, are you sure? What was that like?
No, in my case, they were quite understanding. I was lucky. Could happen somewhere else that they can give
Yeah.
you pushback, but I did not get pushback. I would say, as a father, it might be sometimes challenging to go into this fatherhood role because you have less exposure to other fathers around. Like my wife, she had so many activities before the child was born and after the child was born. She had mama group, child yoga, this and that, and she made so many friends instantly, right? The first couple of months after being a mother. Being a father, you have much, much less access to these groups, and it's much more difficult to get to know other fathers. I joined a big WhatsApp group here in Munich that it was recently created with dads, but before that it was difficult to get to know other fathers, and that's so different for the women, and that is so important once you're a father, that you have people around you in the same life situation. It's very tough if you are the only dad around and you don't have friends with children, you don't have family with children, right? So having fathers being off longer can also help us to connect more and have more activities together.
Totally. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you find it lonely or challenging in any ways when you were off with your son, especially maybe before starting to have more fatherhood community?
I did have situations that I don't know if I would go to say as far as lonely, but that I wish to get to know more people. And it's something I discuss. Sometimes I got to know fathers through my wife's mother's friend. Okay. She would get to know someone and then said, oh, by the way, how about your partner meets with my partner? And that's how I get to know some dads, right? Which is a complicated way to get to know other fathers. And that's how we started to say, okay, it's not so easy to meet other fathers. And luckily after that, there was a big WhatsApp group here created, and I got to know more people. But yeah, I would say I wish I still knew more people, people that live close to me, that I could meet with my kid 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, without knowing you super well, but just based on our conversation today and you and I having chatted before, you seem, I hate to call it evolve, but like you seem still like the exception to the rule of much male and masculine behavior in terms of how you're approaching fatherhood, the relationship with your wife, etc. Would you agree? Like, do people treat you like a saint? Like, are people like, oh my God, you're taking paternity leave. This is so amazing. Like, it is amazing. But would you say you're celebrated in a special way? Or do you think people are like, yeah, cool, whatever? Like, I'm curious how others have responded to you.
I've had situations where people said, kind of congratulated me for being on parental leave, right? And I'm sure my wife did not get congratulated for that. So there has been definitely cases. I would say it's not crazy. I think society is evolving in that regard, and it happens less and less, but you still get some congratulations for doing that, whereas the women would not get them. Yeah.
What do you usually, how have you responded to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel if it's usually well intended, right? It just comes from usually people of other generations. So I have not said much about it. Just maybe mentioned that my wife also has been doing it. Now it's my turn, and I think that's been kind of my response.
Yeah. And I agree. I think I understand why it can get, especially some women's backs up where they're like, well, great, you're doing still perhaps less than what the women have been doing for a long time.
Yes.
And it's good to acknowledge, I think, these steps forward. And I mean, we should be celebrating all parents, I think, for, we can celebrate child-free people too, folks. I know people listening are like, what about us child-free folks? No, but this is, it's a big undertaking. And, I mean, my understanding, you're not, why, let me ask you this. Why have you felt like, you've shared a little bit, but I just want to hear you maybe articulate further. Why have you felt like it's important for you to be approaching things with your wife in terms of parenting your son, like equitably, if you will? Why does that feel important to you?
Sure. I think if you do want to have an impact on the child's education, right, you can't be just but the sidelines looking, and you have to take care of the child and also say what things you think are better. I think also makes sense for just this reason. If you also want to have a good partnership, right, having a good partnership is such a big foundation to also being a good parent and having a long lasting partnership together with your kids. So if you want to have that, you definitely have to be involved in your children's education. And I would say also in our lifestyles, there's not room for one parent skipping his or her responsibilities. Like we both work full time, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to do it. We have to today I take care of him in the afternoon, tomorrow you do it, today I pick him up, tomorrow you do it. But it doesn't work logistically if only one person does it. So I think those are the reasons. Also, if you're excited about parenthood, you want to spend time with a child, go to play, and it's also not about, okay, I do this task, I test this task from you, but I do it because I want to do it.
Yeah. I'm interested. How have you enjoyed fatherhood so far?
It is an joyful activity. It is interesting because it's maybe the hardest thing I've ever done and also the most rewarding one, right? Like this week we were in Spain and he would just learn how to stand, and we took a video the other day. He was just standing by himself and then laughing and clapping, and like those kind of moments, that kind of joy I felt seeing him, right, do that, how you see him develop. It's something that I had never experienced before, and it is very joyful, and I do especially look forward to seeing him grow, right? He's very small, but I do really look forward to being able to talk to him, to have conversations, to see him grow, to make his own decisions. Also having a boy, it's interesting because I wanted to have a girl before he was born, but now I'm so happy he's a boy. And if I had a second one, I would want him to also be a boy, the second one, which is like super weird, but I think it's because...
Tell us more about that. Why you wanted a girl and then why you have...
I don't know. I wanted a girl, just I thought girls were easier. I feel it's, you can trust more once they grow older to not make crazy decisions. But having a boy, I think, as being a man, right? Like I have so much more I can mentor, right? Like I could provide some much input that I feel, especially for men and for boys, could be useful. And I'm really happy to see him grow, right? To make decisions, to hopefully help him with his decisions, right? Based on decisions I made or mistakes I made, that he doesn't have to repeat them. And I'm, just very happy for him to have a personality. Hopefully it's a good one. and see where he decides to go in life. Yeah.
I'm interested, if you think about the man you hope your son becomes, like what kind of, you talk about raising him into a man or sort of imparting this wisdom. What kind of values do you hold dear for masculinity and being a man?
I do think just treating everyone with respect is very important, right? I guess for everyone to treat everyone well, to have courage in life when he makes decisions, right? Not making decisions out of fear, but out of courage. And then I hope him to be a curious person that wants to learn things and tries to have meaning in his life and do something that is meaningful. Yeah.
You said something interesting to me when I met you, which was, you're really enjoying and are fulfilled by fatherhood, but you also sort of think now, maybe more than even before, that like you could have also had a good life without a child.
Yes.
So I'm curious to hear about this sentiment.
Yes, I do think like I do not have an agenda. Like if someone comes to me, hey, should I have children or not? Like, of course I decide to have children. If someone is 50-50 leaning, I would try to say, okay, I would encourage you to have children because of my experience. I think it's a great thing, but I could have had a life. I think one can have a very fulfilling life without children as well. I think both decisions are okay. In my case, I had a partner where she really wanted to have a children like me. If I had a different life or someone else that said, I don't want to have children, and she would have been, okay, we're very happy right together, but she really doesn't want to have children. It would have been difficult, maybe especially later on. But I think I could have accepted and also had a life without children.
Yeah. You mentioned going to Spain, I think every 3 months, and maybe wanting, well, definitely it sounds like wanting to live there at some point or raise your son there for a time. Is that conscious that you're going there every 3 months, or how are you trying to like maybe bring in your Spanish culture and background and family to your son's life?
Right. So definitely we try to go there, that he gets, of course, to know his family in Spain very well, that he's acquaintance with the culture and with the language. Right, we doing it every 3 months. It's too little. We also need to do things while being here. So of course, we have I speak to him in Spanish. I tried to get him books and toys that I buy in Spain are in Spanish. Also, luckily, in the childcare facility here, he has a few workers that speak to him. And some of the caregivers that speak to him in Spanish as well. So that's great. And we recently contacted a babysitter that we'll start having here from time to time. And she also comes from Spain. So we try to get these external inputs to him to have this that he doesn't forget about this part of the background that he has, and especially that he masters the language even though he's living in a different country.
Yeah, very cool. That's amazing. Okay, maybe the last thing I want to talk about with you is like being a fun parent, not in the sense of like I have fun with my kid, which is also important, but maintaining and upholding and doing the things that you as an individual and you and your wife as a couple want to be doing. And, you know, the background to this, of course, is we met on, I think it was a Thursday night at a wine bar, and you're there with your son and your wife and having a nice evening. And we talked about how this is like relatively uncommon to still be out and about doing that kind of thing with a young child. So I'm curious if you can tell me a bit about that and sort of how you've tried to make that a priority, doing things that you want to do.
Right. That is, I would say that's quite important to us, especially to me. Maybe for me, the biggest challenge, honestly, of being a parent is the things you give up, right? The things you could do before that you cannot do now. And I would say where I've come to, it's not that you cannot do them, you just have to do them less. And you have to manage things differently, right? You have to align, but if you do things effectively, you can still hold some of that life, right? Of course, it's not the same. I'm not saying to anyone being a parent, life will change, and it has to change, right? You cannot keep it, but it will not change 100%. And there are some things in your control that you have that can make things a little bit easier. So, for example, we are unlucky and also lucky that our child goes to bed quite late. We've tried to bring him earlier, but before 9:30, it just doesn't happen. He doesn't fall asleep. So that gives us the chance to go out for dinner without going into his sleeping routine, right? So going out for dinner, for example, my wife and I, it's something we still do with him so far, as long as he allows us. But I think he also somehow likes having different outputs, not being always with us at home, right? When for example, we were on vacation a couple times and he had a great time. You can the good thing with a child is you see if he's suffering. It's not that he's suffering inside and he's hiding his emotion, right? Like usually when he's having a bad time, he's hungry, he's sleepy, he will cry, and then you can go home. So if you see he's laughing, he's playing around, then you know you're good. So that's something, for example, that we try to do together. Something else that we do, my wife and I, is we split up. So on the weekends especially, we say, okay, Saturday, first half of the day is for you. You can do your plans with your friends. Second half for me, and I'll make my own plans. So with that splitting, it gives the other person always time to do something else. And then maybe the other day we will do something together. And then we just recently contacted a babysitter to start next month some evenings taking care of him, so that we can have some time on our own. Yeah. And we've used until now our families when they were around as an excuse for us to have some freedom. So that's the way we try to keep some of the old plans we used to make is still going.
Yeah, very cool. Amazing. Okay, is there anything about this topic, this kids or child-free decision, your fatherhood journey, anything you want to share that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, I do think when I was thinking about this, listening to this podcast, I was thinking a lot of people do this, maybe pros and cons of having child, right? What is good for me? What is good? What is bad? I do think if you do such a list, you will probably end up on the side of not having a child.
I agree.
Because if you're just logically saying, how is my weekend looking? What activities am I doing? The burden is more than the advantages. But I do think there's more to it. I do think that the joy you get having a child, the benefit you see is greater, and it will probably not be reflected on a pro-cons list. I'm just saying, it's totally fine. I totally understand if someone does not want to have a child. I would just say to consider really the emotional aspect as well when making that decision.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to play the devil's advocate as one of my listeners. Okay, Alfonso, so I hear the joy of being a parent is amazing, but the thing is, I don't know. How will I know that it will be that joyful for me? What would you say in terms of how do we capture that emotional essence if I can't test drive it? Like I can't have my own child. How would you think about that?
Right. It is not easy. I think I did not fully know until having a child, right? So you will not know 100%. I would say if you are a person that is likely to enjoy company of other people, if you don't mind taking care of other people, if you've had interaction with little children and they've been positive, I do think that can help. In my experience, something I didn't talk about, but for example, when I was in college, I took care during some summers. I was teaching small children from age 3 to 10 tennis, and then I was with other children. I was teaching them English privately, and having that contact with small children helped me realize, okay, this is something I want to do. So I think there is not exactly test and drive, but I think their life puts you still in some situations that are similar, I think, in some way to having a child. And I think if you have this emotional attachment to people, I think you might be likely to be joyful while being to have joy while being a parent.
Yeah. Thank you. Good advice. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. If anybody has feedback they want to share with you or further questions, is there a good way for them to connect? And we can put, for example, if there's a social media handle or anything, we can put it in the show notes.
I only have my LinkedIn account. I do not have social media accounts.
That's okay. Should we share your LinkedIn? Is that okay?
Sure. 100%.
Okay, we'll share Alfonso's LinkedIn in the show notes. You might be surprised. We had a guest a couple of weeks ago who said she's had someone reach out via LinkedIn. So there we go. All right. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really have enjoyed and valued our conversation.
Thank you, Keltie.
Don't go just yet. I have one more thing I want to share with you today, and that is an ask. If you are enjoying the podcast and you have not already left us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast app, You can give us a star rating on the Spotify app. If you listen in the Apple Podcast app, you can leave a rating as well as a review, i.e. share a few kind words about this podcast and how it's impacted you. This goes a really long way in helping our podcast get discovered by other listeners, prospective, or I should say fence sitters who need some help with their decision. It'll just take you a quick moment and it truly does go a long way. So again, rating, review, make sure as well that you're subscribed to the podcast so you always get future episode updates. And otherwise, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.